The snow had already begun to fall when Claire realized she couldn't face Christmas alone again. Her mother's old house felt too big, too silent, too painfully untouched by time. Every corner echoed memories she wished she could forget, especially the last December she spent there. She stared at the fireplace, its ashes long cold, and felt the familiar pressure building in her chest. The loneliness had teeth this year, sharper than usual. And in a moment of weakness, or desperation, she scrolled through her phone. Her thumb hovered over a name she promised never to touch again. Aaron. Aaron was the one person she shouldn't call, not after the way things ended. Their breakup had been a storm of slammed doors and words meant to wound. They hadn't spoken in 2 years, not since Claire walked away without explanation. Yet the holidays had a cruel way of resurrecting ghosts. Claire whispered to herself that it was just practical, nothing more. She needed someone to play a role, to get her through 1 week. She tried to believe the lie even as she pressed the call button. When Aaron answered, her voice was the same, soft, steady, painfully familiar. Claire froze, breath catching like she'd been punched. For a second, neither spoke, suspended between the past and something unspoken. Finally, Claire forced out the words she had rehearsed but hated. She explained the situation, the family expectations, the empty house, the pressure. She asked if Aaron could come home with her for Christmas as her partner again. The silence that followed felt heavier than the snow outside. Aaron didn't say yes immediately. She never made things easy. She asked why Claire couldn't bring someone else, someone new. Claire swallowed hard, knowing the truth wasn't flattering. She hadn't let anyone close enough to pretend. And the town already loved Aaron, had welcomed her like one of their own. The ruse only worked if the lie felt believable. And Aaron, whether she wanted to or not, had always been believable. Eventually, after a long breath and a tension Claire could almost hear, Aaron agreed. But her voice held a chill sharper than winter itself. She would go, she said, not for Claire but because she understood complicated family stories. Claire accepted this without protest, though the word stung. Old wounds had long memories, and Aaron's was still bleeding. Still, Claire felt a flood of relief she couldn't hide. Aaron would come home with her for Christmas. When Claire hung up, her hand trembled, though she wasn't sure why. Maybe it was guilt, or nerves, or the dread of reopening doors she'd locked. She stood in the quiet house, listening to the wind push against the windows. The shadows on the walls seemed unfamiliar, as if the house had shifted. She whispered to herself that it was only 1 week, nothing more. A simple performance for the town, for her family, for tradition's sake. But even she didn't believe it. Outside, the snow thickened, blanketing the world in white. Somewhere far from the house, Erin packed her bags with mechanical precision. She folded old sweaters Claire once loved and wondered why she still kept them. She told herself this wasn't a second chance, just a temporary role. But a small part of her, buried deep, knew better. Christmas had a way of unearthing truths people tried to bury, and neither of them was ready for what coming home would awaken. Claire spent the next morning pretending she wasn't anxious, though her pacing betrayed her. She cleaned rooms no one used, rearranged ornaments she barely looked at. Every task became a distraction from the truth she refused to face. She was terrified, not of Aaron's arrival, but of everything it might stir up. The house felt smaller with every passing hour, like memories pressed inward. Christmas decorations her mother, once cherished, now felt like ghosts. And Claire wondered if she'd made a mistake too big to undo. Meanwhile, Aaron drove through the mountains in silence, the radio off. The road twisted like the past she thought she'd buried. She kept her hands tight on the wheel, as if the car might slip or she might. Every snowfall blurred the world, making the town feel unreal. But the memories were clear. Claire's laugh, Claire's anger, Claire's goodbye. She tried to breathe through the ache those memories still carried. 1 week, she reminded herself. Just 1 week. When Aaron reached the town limits, everything felt painfully familiar. The wooden signs, the snow-covered rooftops, the old bakery in the square. It was like stepping into a life she once belonged to, but no longer recognized. People waved as she drove by, unaware she had vanished from Claire's world. They still saw her as the woman Claire loved, a story that had never ended publicly. In their eyes, she and Claire were on pause, not broken. And for a moment, Aaron wondered if pretending would hurt more than the truth. Claire stood on the porch when Aaron's car appeared, her breath fogging the cold air. Seeing Aaron step out felt like being hit with every emotion at once. Her coat, her hair, her guarded expression, nothing had changed and everything had. The distance between them felt heavier than all the snow in the mountains. Claire forced a smile, the kind that never reached her eyes. Aaron offered a polite nod, her walls firmly in place. The silence between them said more than any greeting could. Inside the house, Aaron paused, taking in the unchanged living room. The photos on the mantel, the knitted blankets, the faint scent of pine. It was a museum of the life they once shared, a life Aaron had grieved. Claire watched her closely, unsure whether Aaron felt nostalgia or anger. Aaron traced a fingertip over the wooden banister, breathing deeply. "It's like time stopped here," she murmured, not meeting Claire's eyes. And Claire didn't know if that was comforting or damning. They unpacked Aaron's things in the guest room, the one that used to be theirs. Claire tried to act casual, but her hands shook with every folded sweater. Aaron kept her distance, answering questions with short, controlled replies. The air between them was fragile, like thin ice waiting to crack. Claire wanted to say something real, something meaningful. But every sentence she rehearsed collapsed before reaching her tongue. Apologies had never been her strength, especially the ones Aaron deserved. That evening, they sat across from each other at the dinner table. The sound of clinking silverware filled the silence they didn't know how to break. Outside, Christmas lights flickered against the snow, warm and deceptive. Inside, two women shared a meal like strangers rehearsing old roles. Claire caught herself staring at Aaron's hands, remembering their warmth. Aaron noticed and looked away, jaw tightening. And Claire wondered if the act she'd asked for would destroy them all over again. The next morning, Claire woke early, unable to shake the tension in her chest. She found Aaron already in the kitchen, making coffee like she used to. For a moment, Claire stood in the doorway, watching her move with quiet precision. It felt achingly familiar, almost intimate, and dangerously comforting. Aaron didn't look up, but she felt Claire's presence instantly. "Still take it with 2 sugars?" she asked, voice steady but guarded. And Claire realized how much Aaron still remembered, and how much she didn't deserve it. They drove to town together, rehearsing the story they'd tell if asked. It felt strange, practicing affection they once gave freely. Aaron kept her eyes on the snowy road, avoiding anything deeper than logistics. Claire stole glances at her, searching for traces of the woman she lost. But all she saw was someone holding herself together with quiet strength. The kind of strength born from heartbreak, not healing. And Claire hated knowing she was the reason for it. At the Christmas market, the town welcomed them with open arms. People hugged Aaron first, as if she had never left. They asked questions. "Are you back for good? How's the city?" Oblivious to the truth. Claire watched Aaron smile politely, pretending everything was fine. But Claire saw the flicker behind her eyes, the strain beneath the surface. Pretending to be a couple again was easier for the town than for them. And that reality stung more than Claire expected. They stood near the tree lighting ceremony, close enough to feel each other's breath. The mayor insisted on taking their picture, just like old times. Aaron forced a soft smile, but her hand trembled when it brushed Claire's. The touch was accidental, or maybe it wasn't, but it sent a sharp jolt through them. For Claire, it awakened something she thought she'd buried. For Aaron, it cracked open a wound she'd spent years stitching shut. Nothing about the moment felt simple, not even the way they stepped apart after. Later, as they walked home, the silence felt heavier than snow. Aaron kept her hands in her pockets, shoulders tense. Claire wanted to speak, to bridge the distance, but fear held her back. Every word felt like a mine she might accidentally step on. Finally, Aaron broke the quiet. "You're different." Claire flinched, unsure if it was an accusation or observation. And Aaron's eyes softened, just barely. But maybe I am too. Back inside the house, they warmed up by the fireplace. The flames cast soft, shifting light over Aaron's features. Claire watched her, feeling the pull of a past she once walked away from. She wondered if Aaron still remembered that last night, the fight, the heartbreak. The way Claire shut down instead of letting Aaron in. Aaron turned away, as if sensing the thoughts. "We don't have to pretend when it's just us," she murmured. Claire hesitated before answering, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know, but I don't know how to be around you without pretending." Aaron inhaled sharply, the truth landing heavier than expected. The vulnerability between them felt raw, exposed, unguarded. The past wasn't done with them. It was still shaping every breath. Outside, snow continued to fall, soft and relentless. And inside, two women stood on the edge of something dangerous and unresolved. The next day, Claire decided to distract herself by bringing down old Christmas boxes from the attic. Aaron offered to help, though her tone suggested it was more obligation than desire. The attic was cold, dust clinging to memories stored in cardboard and silence. Claire sifted through ornaments wrapped in tissue paper yellowed by time. Aaron moved slower, opening boxes with the hesitation of someone afraid of ghosts. Neither expected the past to reach out so literally. But that attic was full of things neither had truly left behind. Claire found an old wooden box she didn't recognize. Its edges were worn, its latch rusted, as if untouched for years. Curiosity tugged at her, the kind she shouldn't have fed. She opened it and froze, breath trembling in her chest. Inside were photos, most familiar, some forgotten, of holidays long past. But one photo sat on top, different from the rest, almost deliberately placed. And Claire felt her stomach drop before she even looked at it closely. The photo showed her and Aaron standing together at a winter fair. Snowflakes clung to their hair, their hands intertwined. But what struck Claire wasn't the picture itself, it was the date on the back. It was from a year before they officially met. A year Claire had no memory of ever seeing Aaron. Her pulse quickened, her mind racing to make sense of the impossible. Had they crossed paths long before their story began? Aaron noticed the shift in Claire's expression and stepped closer. "What is it?" she asked cautiously, as if bracing for impact. Claire handed her the photo with trembling fingers, unable to speak. Aaron stared at it for a long time, jaw tightening, breath shallow. Her reaction wasn't shock, it was recognition. And that terrified Claire far more than the picture itself. Aaron knew exactly what this photo was. "Why didn't you ever tell me we met before?" Claire whispered. The question seemed to slice through whatever composure Aaron had left. Aaron looked away, her shoulders rising with a silent, pained exhale. "It wasn't the right time," she said softly, almost defeated. Claire stepped forward, heart pounding. "You remember this." "I don't." Aaron finally met her eyes, something raw and vulnerable flashing through them. "Claire, there are things you forgot, because you wanted to forget." The attic seemed to shrink around them, thick with tension and cold truth. Claire's mind churned, fragments of memories slipping just out of reach. She suddenly felt the weight of years pressing down on her chest. "What else aren't you telling me?" she asked, voice cracking. Aaron swallowed, eyes glistening with something between fear and sorrow. "It's not about lying," she whispered. "It's about protecting you." But Claire didn't know whether to feel grateful or betrayed. Before Claire could push further, the old attic light flickered. Shadows trembled across the walls as if the house itself reacted. Aaron closed the box abruptly, her hand shaking. "We shouldn't do this here," she said, her voice unsteady for the first time. Claire wanted answers, but Aaron was already moving toward the stairs. The past had crawled out of the dark, and Aaron clearly wasn't ready to face it. But Claire knew one thing for certain. This was no longer just a holiday act. They walked downstairs in silence, the photo burning in Claire's mind. Aaron stayed a few steps ahead, her posture rigid, almost defensive. The living room felt warmer than the attic, but no more comforting. Claire paused near the fireplace, gripping the photo like a lifeline. "How could I forget meeting you?" she asked quietly. The question wasn't angry, it was aching. And that ache seemed to soften something in Aaron. Aaron sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped tightly. "Because you were going through the worst time of your life," she said gently. Her voice trembled, breaking the cool armor she'd worn until now. "You were grieving your mom. You weren't letting anyone close." Claire felt the words hit, sharp and painfully true. "That day at the fair you barely spoke. But you looked so lost." Aaron's eyes softened. "I just wanted to make sure you weren't alone." Claire lowered herself onto the opposite cushion, stunned. "You were a stranger then. Why would you care about me?" Aaron hesitated, her breath unsteady. "Because you looked like someone trying not to break," she said softly. "And I know what that feels like." Something tender and fragile flickered between them, almost dangerous. But Claire wasn't ready to let the moment slip. "But why hide it from me?" Claire pressed. Her voice shook, torn between hurt and longing for the truth. Aaron looked down at her hands, fingers curling into fists. "Because when we met again, really met, you were different. Stronger." She swallowed hard, remembering. "And I didn't want our story to start with you in pain." Claire blinked, taken aback by the quiet sincerity. "I wanted you to choose me, not cling to me." The room felt too full, too loud with unspoken things. "Is that why you stayed after we broke up?" Claire asked. Aaron's shoulders tensed, grief flickering across her face. "I stayed because I hoped you'd come back," she whispered. "And when you didn't, I left so I could finally breathe again." Claire felt guilt coil inside her chest, sharp and cold. Aaron hadn't just been hurt, she'd been abandoned. Claire moved closer, the photo still in her hand. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you," she said. "I left because loving you scared me, more than losing anyone ever had." Aaron's breath caught, eyes widening, emotions swirling too fast to hide. For a moment, they just stared at each other, walls thinning by the second. It was the closest they had been in years, physically and emotionally. And neither seemed sure what to do with that closeness. The clock chimed softly, breaking the moment. Aaron stood abruptly, needing space, needing air. "I can't do this if you're just saying things to make the week easier," she warned. Claire rose too, her voice steady despite the fear. "I'm saying them because they're true." Aaron stopped in the doorway, breath hitching. And Claire whispered, almost pleading, "I want to remember everything, including you." Aaron didn't move at first, her breath caught between fight and surrender. The house seemed to hold its own breath with her, waiting. She finally turned back, eyes shining with a mixture of hope and fear. "Memories don't come back just because you want them to," she murmured. "But sometimes they return when you're ready to face them." Claire stepped closer, heart pounding with something new and old at once. "I'm ready," she whispered. "For whatever comes." Aaron hesitated, then gently reached for Claire's hand. The touch was soft, tentative, like testing the temperature of a forgotten flame. And in that moment, something shifted, subtle but unmistakable. A flicker of memory sparked behind Claire's eyes. Snow, lights, a stranger's warmth. She drew in a shaky breath, overwhelmed. I remember that fair," she said, voice trembling. Aaron's expression softened with quiet relief. They sat together on the couch, closer than before. Aaron spoke softly, guiding Claire through pieces of the past she had locked away. The laughter they shared in the cold, the moment their hands brushed for the first time. How Aaron had tried to comfort her without asking for anything in return. Claire felt the memories unwrap slowly like fragile ornaments. Painful ones too, grief, fear, the walls she had built. But beneath it all, there had always been Aaron. A tear slipped down Claire's cheek before she noticed. Aaron reached out, brushing it away with a gentlest touch. "You don't owe me an apology for forgetting," she said quietly. "But you owe yourself the chance to heal." Claire leaned into her hand, the closeness intoxicating. For the first time in years, she felt steady, anchored by someone who once knew her better than she knew herself. And maybe still did. "I lied when I told myself bringing you here was just for show," Claire admitted. It wasn't about the town. Or the story. I think I just wanted you near. Erin's breath hitched, her guard faltering entirely. I wanted you near too, she whispered. The truth hung between them, raw and trembling. No performances, no pretending, no holiday facade. Just two hearts finally meeting again where they had once shattered. Slowly, cautiously, Claire leaned forward. Erin didn't pull away. If anything, she moved closer. Their foreheads touched, warmth cutting through winter's chill. The moment felt like coming home after far too long. Claire closed her eyes, letting the past dissolve into something gentler. Can we start over? She asked, voice breaking. Erin smiled softly, a single tear tracing her cheek. Yes, but this time, we don't run. Outside, snow drifted peacefully, blanketing the world in quiet light. Inside, Claire and Erin held each other, not as an act, but as truth rediscovered. The photo lay on the table beside them, no longer a mystery, just a reminder. A reminder that their story didn't start when they thought it did, and it wasn't over either. Christmas lights glowed softly through the window, painting them in warmth. For the first time in years, Claire felt whole. And Erin finally felt chosen.